All right, y'all. So first things first. Is there a worse commentator in the league than Chris Collinsworth, man?
I mean, it's going to start happening, right? They're bringing pressure over here. And so now, but he doesn't have anywhere to go with this thing. And so rightly, he just gets rid of the ball. So one of the things they want Justin Fields to figure out is that's a good play right there by Bagent, right?
Chargers bring 7 to the line. 4 of them come. Bagent's pass is picked off.
Will you cut that out?
Like, seriously. The dude is more transparent than the Browns' PR department, especially when it comes to his persistent slurpage of impressive arm talent and Cinderella stories. Hey, look, you got both in one game, Chris. Too bad you couldn't get him in the same guy, or else you probably would have had to change your pants at halftime. Anyway, let's go ahead and start with Thursday, just like the weekend for college kids. What did we learn about either of these teams that we didn't already know? Like, Buffalo is basically the showers of the NFL. They look pretty impressive at first glance until things get hard and you realize you've already seen their full potential. The Bucs are not good, y'all. I lied when I said they were. And for that, I apologize for giving Western Florida hope that they'll get anything this year other than hurricanes and an influx of racist retirees. Tampa is so bad at running the football that they don't even bother trying anymore, and that's freaking hilarious. Baker's reverted back to his perennial journeyman form, and on that last drive, Bowles managed to clock worse than future managers' parenthood, and yet they still came within Chris Godwin's apparent lack of peripheral vision away from winning that game, y'all. Yeah, seeing as how Philly needed equally poor game management to pull it out this week, I'll be the first to say a win's a win. But again, this is a team that's supposed to be making a run for a chip in January, y'all. Yes, the Mid-Bowl 2023. Brought to you by Jersey Mike spokesman and Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. Look, I know everybody likes to clown the Jets and Giants for playing on the wrong side of the Hudson, but honestly, if you live anywhere within like 2 hours of New York like I do, then these teams are a perfect match for that city. Overhyped, overvalued, and overrun by transplants from the suburbs more likely to call the cops on homeless people than know where to find a decent beef patty. The Jets, though, are a gritty team, and like I keep saying, are literally a quarterback away from contention. Just goes to show you how much this has become a passing league and just how mid Zach Wilson actually is. And yeah, I will give Zach props for driving the field in OT, but as ugly as this game was, it really shouldn't have taken all of that to keep it a buck. And no, I don't think him going to presumably pipe his mama's gal pal over the weekend had anything to do with his mid-play. Zach is just mid on his best day, and the whole team knows it, which is why they got to keep force-feeding Bryce to grind out these ugly-ass wins. On the other hand, Danny DeVito plays football now, apparently, and he's not good. And that's why Saquon got like 11,000 touches this game. But you know who is good? Kayvon Thibodeau is good. And he's kind of quietly having a breakout season despite being overshadowed by that other second-year guy in Detroit. This is another team that I look at the QB situation and I just say, why though? Ineptitude in the front office, that's why. All right, so remember how I said a few weeks ago that the Jags were one of my most disappointing teams at that point in the season? This is exactly why. Like, there's no reason they can't mud stomp the rest of this division on their way to a playoff berth. It's wild to me how coming out Lawrence, who was the most off-slurped prospect of that QB class by national media, and probably the most slurped prospect since Luck, honestly, and yet here we are 3 seasons in, and a back end of the season run for the ages last year, and the most improbable comeback in a playoff game that I've ever seen, and it's Herbert who gets filleted by national media on a week-to-week basis. I'm sorry, y'all, but Lawrence is the guy y'all think Herbert is, and I'm tired of that being ignored just because he doesn't put up the gaudy numbers that Justin does and plays in that part of Florida that really should just be called South Georgia. Like, I know everybody likes to use the game-winning drive stat to prove how elite Herbert is, but like I keep saying about the Niners, the Dolphins, and every other inflated elite team or player, who have they actually beaten in that span? Meanwhile, though he doesn't have nearly as many, look at the quality of the opponents and the comebacks that Lawrence orchestrated. Yeah, methinks these are not the same thing, y'all. On top of that, Travis Etienne is making a case for best back in the league. And that defense kept Pittsburgh to 261 yards of total offense for the game. That's a half for Mahomes by himself.
Having a lot of first-round guys on that D-line, that's what they depend on a lot. And they kind of, hope, you know what I mean? Hope the guys hold up long enough, hope. So it's kind of a hope defense for sure.
Yeah, and see, that's why you don't say dumb shit. Your quarterbacks are just two different versions of Mitch Trubisky. Now, as far as Pittsburgh goes, yeah, sometimes it just takes a minute for the football guys to figure it out, but they always find a way to balance the scales. That's my only real explanation. All right, so before I do rub this dub in y'all's face, for any Washington no-name fans in the audience, listen, I don't know who f***ed your girl, and if I did, I would fade the nigga myself for you. But please, you don't have to take it out on us. I'm begging you, on behalf of the entire Delaware Valley, just let us enjoy a damn football game without requiring intubation afterwards. Golly! Jokes aside, though, I don't really know if Washington is a good team at this point. One week, y'all get stomped by the Bears, and the next y'all come out and y'all do this. It's like if bipolar were a football team. I don't know what it is about these division games. Maybe the teams knowing each other well just means that weird stuff is bound to happen. And yeah, I'll get to that a little bit later. But y'all do at least have the ingredients for a good team, I think. But unfortunately, it looks like the band's not going to stay together long enough to really know. Like, the only thing keeping y'all from a playoff berth, to be honest, is the coach. This was not a catch. I knew immediately it wasn't a catch. Both sidelines knew it wasn't a catch. Everyone in the stadium and watching at home knew that this wasn't a catch as soon as it was not caught. Except Ron Rivera, apparently. In my opinion, this, and not that late INT, is the play that turned the game for good. Because right after that is when this happened. Okay, so I think it's time for us to start giving some MVP love to a certain Eagles player. Yeah, him too, but the O right now is basically just throw the ball to AJ, which I mean, it has been working at a literal historic pace at this point. But I'm sorry, y'all, that's just not a sustainable way to play offense, and it worries me. Because at some point, probably during that hell stretch after the bye, AJ is going to cool down, and Philly is going to have to recommit to running the ball and playing good D, which they didn't on Sunday. And that's the thing, man. The O-line hasn't been as dominant as it was last year, and I think Bieniemy just gave the league the blueprint on how to neutralize the D-line. Literally just get the ball out before they get home. But, hey, a dub's a dub. I'll take it. Sorry about your girl, man. Them Halloween parties are a bit, ain't they? All right, so Rams-Cowboys is next. And congratulations, Dallas, for stomping out an inferior opponent. In other words, doing exactly what a team with that much perennial preseason hype is supposed to do. Boys just stay boysing, I guess. Nah, but jokes aside, I keep saying Dallas has the potential to make a deep playoff run because they almost always do. It's just something about that stupid star that makes the fan base, the national media, and the team simultaneously overestimate their true potential while also somehow failing to meet even the most reasonable of expectations. Just like Jack Harlow. Like, maybe y'all need to just pretend you're any team besides the Cowboys and y'all be straight. Like, seriously, if you ever learn to just tune out the noise, which I mean, when Jerry Crypt Keeper is your owner, that's practically impossible. Y'all could make a run at the chip if all the cards fell in y'all favor, that is. and if y'all had a different head coach. Like, I think at this point, we know that even if Kellen Moore wasn't the solution, Mike McCarthy is probably the problem. And I hope to God Jerry is too deep in his hush fund payments to realize that. All right, so now we go to Indianapolis, aka Clan Capital USA. Like, I'm not even joking, y'all. Know your history. Well, look at that. New Orleans can actually score points when their quarterback isn't yelling at their young stud receiver, but not running after a ball 50 yards over his head and out of bounds. Rashid Shaheed, along with sounding like the leader of Muhammad Moss number 12, is a bright spot in this O. Taysom Hill is the gadget guy that Tebow would have been if Josh McDaniel had any sense. And the Saints don't have to worry about the entire O collapsing in the event Alvin Kamara loses his temper in an airport again. So that's something. Pats versus Porpoises. I mean, what did we learn from this game that we didn't already know, just like the Thursday night game? Mac Jones is the Grayson Allen of the NFL, both in ability and behavior. And the Dolphins are that big-ass kid in junior high who beats up all the kids in his school only to have the upperclassmen smash Sprite cans on his head once he moves up to the 9th grade. Yeah, my high school was pretty wild, man. Titans-Falcons. Okay, Will Levis is a Hall of Famer in the making, and Atlanta finally dumped Trevor the way Hillary should have, and they still lost the game anyway. Moving on, Panthers-Texans, the battle of the top 3 picks from this year's draft, because Jonathan Gannon is too smart to actually know what he's doing. So Bryce got his first career dub. Good, but it's way too late in the season to really matter. Bad. Until Carolina gets him some playmakers and some decent linemen, or hey, I don't know, develop the linemen you already have, they're never going to develop this kid the right way. Okay, so I wouldn't even bother talking about the Browns game because it would practically just be me repeating everything I said last week, but I do want to at least give some love to the Seagulls. 5-2 at the top of y'all's division. That's kudos worthy. Y'all got a legit quarterback and receiving core, a coach so old that he babysat George Bush, and for the second year in a row, Seattle has proven why F them picks only works when you're Sean McVay and for 1 year. Was that all the 1 p.m. games? If not, I don't care. Oh, wait, I do got to talk about the Vikings, don't I? Damn. Y'all are fucked. Okay, so the real stories of week 8 all came in the afternoon, but we'll start with the most inconsequential. Yeah, so apparently OBJ got caught having a temper tantrum on the sideline during a win because he hasn't been getting the ball. And I mean, that's what you sign up for with OBJ. Y'all should know this. It's a nothing burger, especially when the defense and running game plays so well that Lamar actually doesn't have to be superhuman for once. Like, that's the thing, man. I don't think we talk enough about this with the Ravens. After all these years, this is finally becoming a balanced team, right in time for Lamar's prime, in fact. Like, the knock for me was never about ability, but the fact that the whole team gets blown over by a stiff wind and ends up on IR, which I mean is still happening, but they're succeeding despite it because of their balance. That's a Super Bowl recipe in my book. Now on to the real drama. Oh, boy. 49er fans, just take a double shot of what I said last week and try not to die from alcohol poisoning because that thing is going to hit harder than moonshine now. Okay, so I know the first thing a lot of y'all want to do is get on Brock, but I mean, you can't just suddenly expect the guy to do something he literally hasn't been asked to since the beginning of the relationship. Sounds like my sex life, to be honest. Yeah, y'all had to know that this Cinderella story was going to come crashing back to reality at some point, but that's what Shanahan's famous QB-proof system was for, right? Well, I guess that just goes to show that once you start playing comparable competition, the X's and O's only matter as much as the Jimmys and Joes. And let me tell you, this team is built to win one way and one way only. Run up the score, force you to catch up, and then punish you when you inevitably F up. I'm sorry, y'all, but most elite teams know how to get out dubs even when the way that they usually win is not the way that they win in that game. San Fran hasn't figured that out yet, but y'all need to, like, now, if you're going to be in the same combo as the Eagles, the Lions, and hell, the Seahawks at this point come January. On the other side, we have the Cincinnati Messiahs, who despite all odds have found a way to come back from the dead for the second year in a row. Just like I predicted. Kinda. Okay, I did say to hit the panic button on the Bengals a few weeks ago, but I wasn't counting them out then because, I mean, Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow, and Chase and Higgins are both still in the building catching his balls. But neither Burrow nor the defense is really the story here, in my opinion. It's that Cincinnati's much maligned O-line suddenly learned how to pass block overnight. That's kind of bad news for the rest of that division. And honestly, looking at the schedule, there is a route for Cincinnati to win it. Okay, so this is definitely Taylor's fault, right? Jokes aside, let's be real. Despite this all-time troll by the Broncos and the fact that over the last 2 games, they've actually haven't allowed more than 16 points, amazingly, this is all about KC because despite the dub, the Broncos aren't going anywhere but the Sierra's baby shower. Damn, does like anybody like this dude? This is exactly why I say power rankings mean about as much as Stephen A's football takes. KC has been playing like the Philadelphia of the AFC, but nobody talks about it because, OMG, guys, Taylor Swift is in the club box, you guys. Women, please like football. Please like it. Please like football. Nah, but for real, KC, specifically the O, has looked janky all year. Y'all barely beat Zach Wilson, hung on for dear life against the Vikings, and the only reason we don't talk about that is because Brandon Staley is basically IRL rookie mode. Good news is y'all got a chance to silence the doubters against the Miami McDaniels next week. Actually, now that I think about it, as far as narratives go, this game has more drama in it than the Shade Room. White people don't worry about that reference. All right, so the best thing about this game is we got to put the Tyler Bagent nonsense to bed before it ever really got a chance to start, despite Chris Collinsworth's best efforts. Speaking of, one of Colin Slurp's other favorite customers had a pretty decent game against a pretty bad team. And now we're right back at the Justin Herbert is a top 5 QB thing, and please.
Stop it. Get some help.
I'm going to do a whole video on this later, but I think the reason why Herbert stays in the top 5 quarterback combo, despite having doing anything to warrant that besides put up gaudy numbers, is the gaudy numbers. And yeah, the coach is ass, like this much ass, in fact. But the thing about Herbert is I think people love the idea of what Herbert can be if he ever manages to put it all together when it really matters, more than they actually love what Herbert is at this present moment. Like I said before, we crowned him practically from his first start. And if watching Lamar, Allen, and Hurts' careers have taught me anything, is that talking heads are good for nothing, if not dying on a hill that was paved over years ago. Yeah, that was basically the Herbert video that I'm not going to bother making now. Next! All right, so can I say it now? Y'all going to let me say it, like, for real? Okay, Detroit is the second best team in the conference. And I don't mean right now, I mean period. What do I keep saying about the trenches, y'all? The same thing I say about booty.
Was more important than drinking water, man.
See, I tried not to overreact to the first few weeks of the season because, I mean, but not going to lie, it was kind of hard to not pump the brakes just slightly on Detroit after they got stomped last week. But the more I watch them, the more I'm convinced this team can make a run, especially if they manage to get home field for at least a couple of those games. And I think they know that, which is why this team is built around running the football down your throat until you choke on it like you ate a whole box of Popeye's biscuits. Also, somebody please get Davante Adams the hell out of Vegas. The man is absolutely miserable. There's literally nothing left there for him besides titty bars, and that's what Atlanta is for.